Hey there, people. Thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed the first episodes of Neutral Exposure. This episode is a little bit different. It's the first time I'm talking to a photography partnership, a husband and wife couple, Jason and Yvonne. They run under the name of Dutch-Engels, and they are based out on a little island in the Inner Hebrides of Scotland called the Isle of Tiree, and you'll hear plenty about what that is like during the episode. I came into contact with Jason and Yvonne last summer when they reached out to us at Teamwork and they wanted to see some phase 1 equipment, and I got asked if I wanted to go out there, and it was a pretty short answer. Yeah, sounds great. And it was actually just after I'd got married, and I thought, hey, this is also a possibility to extend the honeymoon a little bit. So my wife Hayley came along for the trip as well, and we spent about 5 days out there, and met Jason and Yvonne. And as I mentioned in the episode, I was kind of expecting just to meet a couple of photographers, and they are much more than that. They're much broader thinking than just being photographers. They're involved in many different businesses and ventures, and they have a very unique perspective on how they run their business, particularly when it comes to the financial side of things. And I think that'll be quite interesting for people to hear during the episode. Great couple, really interesting. They never seem to stop. They're always involved in different things, and it was great to become friends with them, really. But for that reason, my wife Hayley decided to join the conversation as well, which we thought would be a really nice thing to do. So it's a partnership on both sides, and I hope you enjoy the conversation.
Welcome to Neutral Exposure, a space for reflection and inspiration with photographers across a range of disciplines. My name's Al Simmons.
In terms of timing and getting things right, and when you have 3 lambs descend on you, it just throws everything. And usually you feed them every 4 hours, so you sort of work in 4-hour blocks. Like last year, because we had orphan lambs that were a bit older, so you have this 4-hour block that you can do stuff in. But because we've got 3 in there all at different stages, it's sort of like you've got a 90-minute block. And it sounded doable, and then so you realise that all through the night you're waking up. So on day 3, I was like a walking zombie, and we'd sort of split shifts. So Yvonne went upstairs and slept, and I stayed downstairs in the living room, slept on the floor with the lamb, because he was so poorly. And we're told by many crofters and farmers that lambs just give up. So if they don't have enough affection or that, they just stop. So we're like, oh no, don't leave him. So it's been really, but I tell you, from a photographic point of view, wow.
It's changed all your projects to lamb projects.
Yeah, well, obviously with the hats and everything else, it couldn't be any better. Yeah. And they say never work with animals. These guys, oh my God, do they pose? Do they know how to pose? They don't move around.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. So, the weird thing, so we live on a little island, and all the things that you wouldn't have to think about if you had a pet, like eagles and buzzards. So it's because they have eagles over in Mull, and they come over here, and we have some fairly large buzzards here, and you hear sort of your left ear, all this squawking going on, and you look around and seagulls are going crazy. And obviously, this is all new to us. And then you look up and there's this massive bird. And these things do swoop down and take lambs. Wow. So you sort of have to look at the world in a different way. Yvonne's gone crazy because I've had the camera out just shooting thousands of shots of birds. I've never shot a bird in my life. Oh. Wildlife is not our thing.
You're drawing them in now.
Yeah.
Because I do post-production, he comes in, can you just check my shots for me? Like, how many thousand did you take just now? No more eagle shots.
No more eagle shots. Yeah, so it's a completely different way of looking at the world. It's lovely, really.
Yeah, I can just about imagine.
We've got more geese.
Have you?
But that's about it. Yeah.
Geese. Yeah.
We've got eagles.
It's quite hard to shoot because they fly at a fair pace. And
Yeah.
doing
especially when you've only got a wide-angle lens.
Can you imagine? Yeah, no, it's sports people and inanimate objects. You can deal with it because they're relatively predictable.
Yeah.
You know, flying objects with their own mind. Always, avoided animals and people on the whole. So it's all changing since coming
How
here.
did it go? Did you get some good shots?
Well, we need to because we're doing a book. So it's sort of. I hope that,
Right. But you want to get the eagle in it.
yeah, I mean, as many bits that tell the story of living on an island, and we're lucky enough to be here for nearly 2 years now.
Yes.
With a bit of a break in between, sort of having to go to the Netherlands quite a lot, and it occurred to us that we should document that. And no one's ever done a book that tells the story in pictures. I mean, you can buy tomes on in the Gaelic and in English, just of words, and that's great if you love reading that sort of thing. But we live in a world where it's all about getting to understand what's in front of you really quickly. And photography does that really well. So we thought, let's just do ourselves a big coffee table book, like a big square, oversized A4 sort of lovely thing, hardback. So we've been going through.
Wildlife photographers.
Sorry?
So you're becoming wildlife photographers.
Unintentionally.
We didn't set out to.
No, not at all.
It's just when you look around, there's so much here in terms of wildlife. It's just insane. And every month, new creatures arrive, and we look at it and go, "What's that one? We didn't see that one before."
Yeah.
So you're drawn into it, whether you like it or not. So I think it's very hard here to ignore the wildlife, even if you're not a wildlife photographer. So I think it has to be part of the portfolio.
Yeah, and then with the lockdown, that's just this is a massively sports-driven island. You've got surfers, windsurfers, wild swimmers. So actually, you could very easily spend, and we did for the first sort of 2 summers when we were here, shooting that sort of stuff.
And now they're all inside.
There's no one here, except for the wildlife and the inhabitants.
Yeah.
And we can be sat here and not see another person for 2 days, really, quite easily. And it's not like we're locked in the houses. We're fortunate that we're surrounded by acres of land, and you can go for a walk. We took Rocky, the lamb, for his first walk on the beach.
Okay, so let's just take a step back for anyone who's going to be listening to this. What is this incredible place you're describing?
So it's a tiny island called the Isle of Tiree. It's the most westerly of the Inner Hebrides. It's basically the last bit of land before you hit America. Tiny, 30 square miles, roughly, give or take a bit. And it even sits in its own climate. Mm-hmm. So unlike the UK, where it gets cold and it gets really hot, doesn't happen here. You could say with some level of confidence, it doesn't fall much below 7 degrees in the winter, but doesn't go much above 22, 23 in the summer on a good day. But that's lovely. It's predictable, a bit mind-blowing because there's relatively no pollution here, so the skies are blue. If you see a photo or a film of Tiree, the sea is, or the ocean, I should say, because it's the Atlantic Ocean, is this unbelievable blue. It's like you're in the Med, and it's sort of what drew us here. So yeah, it's off the coast of Scotland.
Yeah. And you say that's it was the beauty that drew you there, but what prompted you to move to a little tiny island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean? What drew you? That it sounds simple the way you describe it. We just found this island to live there, but what drew you to want to go live out there?
I don't think there was a rational thought process behind it at all. Actually, we wanted to escape the south and the busy life, so we decided that Scotland might be a good candidate for us to move to. We spent about 4 months travelling around pretty much the length of and the breadth of Scotland to see what our new home might be. We hadn't intended to come this far west at all because of the midges. And then we ended up talking to the property solicitor, and she suggested going to see what's out here. And we said, there's midges. She goes, actually, it's not too bad if you go out, far, far west. So we jumped on a ferry and went to Mull. Thought Mull was lovely, but not quite right for us. And then we looked at properties for sale, and there was something for sale here. And then I looked at the satellite picture and I saw all these amazing, stunning white beaches and the color of the ocean. I thought, that looks interesting. So we jumped on a ferry, went across, arrived on the 30th of April 2 years ago, and the weather was just stunning. It was a beautiful sunny day. The water was glistening. It was just amazing. And we took one look at each other and we were like, yeah,
home. We found, yeah. And that was all prompted by, we both worked in various other roles all around the world, and then we set up our own agency as well. And it went really, really well. We were based in London, but our clients all over the world. And it was a creative service, I suppose, and as well as a business sort of change as well. Big part of that was photography and just creating stuff for people, large businesses. And we sort of made that leap from working for other people doing things, because we were sort of getting to the point in our lives where we thought there must be a better way of working. You spend your life, it's a pretty short one. How can we make it more enjoyable? You go sit with clients and that you can do something that's going to really achieve or help them solve the problem or challenge that they have. And then you get down to the money side of things, and the sentence that comes out a lot is, we can only afford to do this.
Yeah.
And you think,
so
how can
you... that a bit, because we know that, knowing you guys a little bit already, that you have a pretty unique approach to your, like, the economic structure of the working process. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so you sit in these meetings, you think, if we weren't talking about money, we would all leave this room and go, let's go and do it. So we set up our own agency, and we thought we would try and change the premise on which you do business. And the one thing that we were really annoyed with is that everyone always talks about money. So we thought, why don't we create a business where you never have to talk about money? So you say to your client, look, you tell us what your challenge is. We'll use the best of our abilities and our skills to answer that challenge for you. And you can decide whether we have done so. And if we have, if you want to pay us, or how much you want to pay us. And that's it. So the question about money,
you accept whatever they give you.
Whatever, anything they want. So how they value it is up to them. And the first time we mentioned it to our solicitors, they were like, "Are you nuts?"
So did you take this model from anywhere that you'd seen before? Never.
No. I'm sure you hear of restaurants that do pay what you feel and stuff. But we're talking of from small clients up to massive multinationals where you're usually billing £100,000.
We just wanted to bring trust back into the conversation.
Yeah. So what we discovered over the years is relationships that are predicated on a financial return tend to have a bias to them. Everyone's trying to get more or something out of it, and then they're sort of justifying doing that by delivering the service, which seems counterintuitive. Whereas if you believe that the people you're working with or who want to work with you can do what they say they can do, and believe they understand your challenge, surely you just go and do it. Because why would we?
You're saying about trust, bringing trust back into the conversation, or like scenario. I wonder about what do you feel that you guys offer, or how you offer it, that enables that trust to grow legs.
So I think it takes time, obviously, to foster trust. But if you take that money out of the equation, the client will actually tell you what the problem is, as opposed to telling you what they think the solution is they want you to implement. And obviously that takes trust from their account. But then if they then realize that we can go away and actually solve their problem rather than just delivering what they've asked for, and often they don't quite know how to solve their problems. And that's why, we tap into all our abilities, our skills, and our worldwide team to be able to look slightly further ahead and wider. And so we solve a bigger problem.
Or it might be a smaller problem.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
So the interesting thing is that if you have an honest conversation, and that's the key to this, trust is all about being able to sit in a room and be honest about what you feel about that challenge. And the people you're sat opposite, you've got to believe in them as well. And it changes the dynamic of that relationship, because there are some people, they may be lovely, but it's just not that there isn't that connection there where you could sit around a table and hash out a solution for what could be a really challenging situation.
It sounds like what it does is liberates you into a sense of agency.
Absolutely, on the money.
It takes you right to the strategy, really. It takes you to where the interesting conversation really happens, which is the why. Why you're trying to achieve what you're setting out to do. So the conversation can change from, I don't know, can you design a booklet for us, to we need to get into China. Can you do that for us? Yeah. It becomes a completely different conversation.
And I suppose there's three elements to how we made it work. The first one was actually having a legal document, a contract written that said you don't have to pay us. Because that fosters a bit of trust. Because it's all well and good sitting across the table from someone, but they go, so what's the catch? And well, there isn't one. And if you can put that into black and white in a contract that is binding, that says also you can walk away at any time, both sides. If you decide that the relationship started off well, and then for some reason it goes downhill on either side, you both stop, walk away, no harm, no foul. And again, this idea of agency kicks into it because everyone talks about, we're your partner, but it's all again predicated on we're your partner, but you pay us a fee every month of 7,000 or 100,000 or whatever it is, and then we deliver something for that. It's removed. You are
creative process without strings attached.
Absolutely. Now, so you've got the client relationship. You have that contract which starts the idea of trust, but that evolves. Now, the way that people that we worked with, I suppose, built that trust with, they would give us something really tiny to start with and say, okay, let's really see how that works. And very quickly, they would realize that they can pick up the phone and ask us anything. Mm-hmm. Now, that would be hard if it was just two of you doing it. But the other side of the equation is we wanted, this idea of the gig economy and people who are on 0-hour contracts and all that sort of stuff didn't sit well with us either. What we didn't want to do was create a business that had hundreds of employees, because what happens then is the other side of the money equation kicks in. You have to take work you maybe didn't want to do because it generates the money to pay people to so they can live their lives. Sure. And you end up morphing into something that you maybe didn't want to be, so you can pay the bills and it grows and off you go. We just didn't want that. So we had to look at a way to have trust on the other side for people who would work with us on projects. And there are, thousands, hundreds of thousands of really talented people around the world who work on a freelance basis or a contract basis or whatever it is. But their problem tends to be that they'll work for somebody and they have to wait for their money. Yeah. So they deliver a service, a chunk of work, and then 90 days later or 60 days later, their money might arrive. And that just didn't seem right in this day and age. Yeah. So we said we would write a contract that said, regardless of whether we get paid or not, if there is a chunk of work that you are working with us on, the second that you finish that chunk of work, you invoice us or whatever system is put in place for that, and we pay you. Mm-hmm. There is no excuse in the world to not do a bank transfer straight away. It's so fast. Mm-hmm. And if you're
the sound of it is lots of things, but it sounds like you put real human vulnerability at the heart of practice, which is like putting the truth of human life at the center of human practice. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, because it means that everybody is as human as they can be, and as open as they have to be to
commit to their craft.
If you have vulnerability at the core, then you have all the possibilities of human existence at your fingertips, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And because on both sides of that equation, trust is building, it means that you go into meetings that are usually
how much is this task? What can you do? When can you do it?
Exactly. What you're saying is, well, what are your challenges?
Yeah.
They look like.
But then going into, as you describe it, kind of, large, potentially multinational corporations that have very traditional structures in place that this completely challenges. What was the response to that initially? Because surely there was a kind of like a breathless moment where, how does that work?
Yeah.
What do we pay you?
And that is exactly what happens.
Yeah.
So when you start off on the smaller project, it's a little bit easier for them to sort of comprehend, because they go, well, it could be a few £1,000s. Mm-hmm. And for large organizations, that's nothing. It's when the relationship builds further and you really get the phone call, and it's happened to us. Someone says, we really want to know how to go to China. How can we, improve the business in China? And we just say, we ask lots of questions, and then we send a team to China or those parts of the world, and they go and sort that problem out. And then we come back and we give the result, and they decide whether they're going to pay for it or not. And it's when you do
the because you've unhooked all of the resistances to truth and to creative process, then it sounds like because you've done that, your skill becomes unhooking it for others.
Yes, absolutely. And the first time you take the initiative on their behalf, no risk to themselves at all, is where that relationship really changes.
But what about the risk to you, though? In that example of flying to China, potentially there's going to be
Why would we do it if we didn't think we could help? It would be insane.
Yeah.
And that's where the business was built, is why would we do anything or say we could do something if we couldn't deliver it? Because there's no return for us.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have conviction in what you do.
Yeah, and we surrounded ourselves with people who are far better than ourselves. We had the most amazing minds working with us. And that's the key to it. We're the dumbest people in the room.
No, I think probably equal to you then.
no, honestly, we were lucky enough to have, and this was a global team. We worked out that there's all these amazing minds who do different things in the creative industries and also in the financial industries and the insurance industry, not just based around, it was, we worked across a lot of sectors, which is again quite odd for a creatively driven business.
Yeah.
Because we weren't just creating things that encourage people to buy something or improve the way something worked. We were, Yvonne was reshaping, parts of the insurance industry. So it was both creative and analytical, and all of that mashed into one. We did some architecture, we did interior, we did loads of stuff. But it wasn't us doing it. It was us saying, okay, we know these amazing minds and people who can help solve that problem or that challenge, as everyone likes to call them. And we could do it fairly quickly as well, because our teams were based in pretty much most of the industrialized and even the growing economies of the world. So we'd be set a challenge on a Friday. We could then bounce that challenge around the world to all these different people, and it comes back and you've done 4 days work in a night. This is a great story. We were in the Netherlands and got a phone call from a client who needed a film doing for one of the big coffee companies. And by the time we'd landed back in the UK, the film crew and the creative crew had already been to site and done what they needed to do. We're already editing. We had a storyboarder in the US working on it as well. So what you've got is all this stuff going on in real time and delivering in a few days. But beautiful work as well, where they get their, it's their creative input that's making that work. All we're doing is driving it.
And then in terms, I suppose, to go back to the trust, because you have built a trust and a relationship with these people that you're calling across the globe, you don't need to oversee the quality control in any way, because it's going to come back.
They're all brilliant.
Yeah.
Why would you knowingly ask someone to do something that they couldn't give their all and do their best?
Yeah. Does that get quite complicated if your client is like, oh yeah, but it'd be quite interesting just can we recut that slightly differently? It then has to go.
They never have done.
No. Wow.
So because the relationship's so different, is it becomes a lot more
less controlling.
Because the client goes, okay, this is my challenge. Go and deal with it. I've got other ones to be working on. There's always something that someone inside a business needs to be dealing with. They don't need to be dealing with the thing they've just asked someone else to help with. And as the business more over time and become an integrated part of the business, just because you're there, you're dealing with, you don't just have one touch point. In most businesses, we would have had 20 or 30 different people that got to know us really well. And so you have all this information coming in about what the business is doing on a global scale or even on a local scale.
Well, an outside eye is such a powerful position of observation, isn't it?
Oh yeah, to be really honest, because you have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And those.
Just one other thing, because that means you also don't have to compromise. And that works from both sides, in that because we work with a fairly large team of some absolutely brilliant people, it means that rather than us having them employed, and so we always have to use the same people for every single project, every project's different. It allows us to choose the correct skill set and really fine tune the people that are needed for that particular client and for that particular challenge. Mm-hmm. And that also means that those of our colleagues who are working on it really enjoy doing that work, because we're using it's their sweet spot, and it's their passion. It's what they do. It's why they're doing it.
And sometimes it wouldn't even be the thing they do as their core day job somewhere else. There's a whole bunch of people who are phenomenally talented doing things that don't answer that talent.
Yeah, gosh, that's true.
Yeah. And to give someone the ability to flourish doing that thing is amazing, because they give it their all, and they then take control of that part of.
Well, I think when you're doing something that is on the touching on the point of your own desire of what you want to do, like it's the hottest thing you could be doing, isn't it? It's the most.
Yeah.
You've got your finger on the fountain of youth, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's also about not making assumptions. So just because someone happens to be a graphic designer doesn't mean they can't do project management or can't, do something else. And so we never make assumptions as to what the kind of involvement is that they want on that particular project. We just say, okay, here's some challenges. Which bit do you fancy doing?
Right. So you asked them. That's lovely. So tell us, so it sounds like you do loads of different projects. Look different every time, right? So give us an example. Like, what are the projects that you've done? A project or two that you've done recently. Like, what do they look like?
So one we're doing at the moment that isn't sort of out in the public domain is we're working with a hotel. So started off with just, how can you develop the brand? How can you make that really work? That's moved into how can you help us build the business, and what does that look like? And then can you help us actually help change the business to meet the need, which is an amazing thing to do.
And right through to helping them design the interior and actually delivering the art that goes on the walls.
Oh yeah, so the art that goes on the walls as well.
Yeah. So you're designing interiors, you're probably designing websites, like logos, branding, copy.
Yeah. I'm working on finding a chef and a team and all that sort of stuff. So it goes from can you create a brand to actually creating a brand. So that sort of visual thing that people think a brand is, which is that end point. That's not the brand. The brand is the thing that creates it.
Yeah, the brand.
Yeah, it's that bigger conversation that you're having with the world. And to make a brand really sing, you have to get right down into the trenches and the foundations of the thing. So that's a recent one, but we've done stuff. Reinvented the sandwich.
Reinvented the sandwich.
Yeah, so a few years ago, there's a massive problem where coffee cups, as everyone knows, the disposable ones, not so good for the world. What most people don't realise is sandwich packs are even worse because of the way they're all laminated. There's a huge amount of waste before it's even got into the pack because of all the standardized sizes that you use for bread. And we worked with two very, very large international businesses, household names, and they were, as an industry, quite scared. How do you reinvent the sandwich? That's going to, you can't be done. So we'll go do it. And you can tell us whether it can or not. So we did, and we came up with a way that you can reduce a third of the waste before it's even got into the pack, create packs that are completely recyclable, 100%.
You love this question, don't you? You love the proposition, this can't be done, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Because they don't have to worry about their money. The biggest learning or the biggest takeaway for us was if you're agency side, you have a perception of value that you deliver for an organisation. By operating the way that we do, we've learned that value is misplaced, because when a client or a partner or whatever you want to call them is deciding where they value what you do, in all the places you wouldn't look. So you might be something that takes us 5 minutes. They value way beyond something that is a 2-month film shoot.
Yeah.
And that's a real eye opener, because however much you think you understand your client, you possibly don't. And you find that you get a lot more access to the financial ramifications of the decisions that are being made. In big agency world, there is a tendency to try and solve the big problem when you're not asked to, because there's more fees in doing so, and you're looking clever possibly. But when you're asked to solve a small challenge and you say, great, let's go and do that, but we need to know all the other information so that we can do that for you and deliver the thing that you asked for. It just so happens we brought all this other stuff as well, because that then helps you answer it, and it doesn't cost you, because you can decide whether you value it or not.
Yeah. And in terms of the Dutch-Engels brand, because you're quite coy in how you market yourselves. Your website doesn't give so much away. It just says all the main kind of philosophies behind the company. But I'd be quite interested to know how these companies find out about you. Is it kind of built on previous relationships that these people know Jason and Yvonne and they know that they can solve all these problems? How ultimately are you finding these clients, or are they finding you?
Well, I mean, until recently, the website was just photography. It had some random photos on it, because I suppose serendipity.
I suppose just to give a bit of context, so we came to see you guys in the summer last year, and prior to coming over, I looked at the website and I was like, I don't know who I'm going to meet. I'm told they're photographers, but also, they've got a lot of interior design on their website. And, so there was definitely you covered a lot of bases in how you branded yourself. So, and usually, we're kind of told that, you need to be focused down and narrowed in. That's how you create a successful business or company for yourself. Whereas you guys kind of do the complete opposite, which is like, hey, we can do anything.
Where we narrowed ourselves down is we said we're going to change the proposition by which we do business. So the fundamental, the core of why we exist and why we do the things on a daily basis is going to change. And that's our focus. That's, it's our niche. It is, we really want to do the right thing well. Mm-hmm. And we can't tell you what those things are, but have a conversation and we will honestly say whether or not we feel we can help. And we do walk away from people as well, because for a number of reasons, it might be that we feel that maybe the relationship wouldn't be a good one, for whatever reason that could be, or we wouldn't be able to help.
I guess of your liberated existence, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're operating in a system that has liberty, then you have to be able to walk away, right? Either side.
Yeah. And funny enough, when we moved to the island, we walked away from a lot of clients because we wanted to change our lives. We thought we'd be navel gazing for a couple of years before the agency, even or consultancy, whatever word you want to use for it, the thing took off or did any sort of business. And in day one, we were snowed under with work.
How do they find you? How do they find you?
Complete accident, random conversation in a cafe. Our first, the largest.
I can understand that on a small scale level in Tyree, but a multinational corporation. You don't meet these people, or maybe I don't know.
No, so in central London, in Covent Garden, in a cafe, talking to a chap who worked for the largest bakery group in the world. Just about, he was, you know how you talk to people. Well, I do.
Al does that. I don't do.
Yeah. And we were having a conversation, and we were talking about the things that we do, and he was talking about a project that he was working on. And I just said, "Oh, that's really interesting," and he showed me, and I sort of burst out laughing. Because I thought, hold it a minute, someone's not maybe doing what they should be. And my premise was, I'm going to direct you to people who can do this for you. And the response was, well, why don't you? Mm-hmm. And okay, as long as you're sure. And that's where it started.
That was your first time.
Which is long before redesigning the shape of the sandwich.
A little bit before, not long before, but a bit before.
So it's been word of mouth since then.
Yeah, pretty much. We've never gone out for business. Because for us,
bakeries have also spread word of mouth, so maybe that's a thing.
Yeah, I think there's for us, it's not been about growing a big business. That's not what we're about. We just want to have an enjoyable life.
Everything happens through conversation. So we've had clients turn up at art exhibitions that we've had and talked about, also different kind of topics, and found out, they wanted someone to help them move their business forward, and that ended up being a client. And even being here, I suppose because we're quite active on social media, on Instagram, again, conversations will turn into, we go sort of off Instagram to continue conversations. And again, before you know it, someone said, "Oh, can you come and help us because we have a problem we think you can help us with."
Yeah. And it is that fluid. What we probably didn't say is you can't help yourself when you're creative, can you? You do stuff, and we create art, and again, it was just because we like doing it. So why wouldn't you? It'd be crazy not to. And we had a few exhibitions and sold some art, and lovely, and a huge amount of clients came from doing that. Not related to the art, but related to the conversation.
Yeah.
Because that's how we sold our art as well. You decide how much to pay for it.
Yeah. Okay. And taking that back, so in photographically, where does that start for you guys? How far back does photography go? Was it always going to be something part of the the creative work that you wanted to do, or was it something that you kind of just managed to merge into the company?
I mean, for me, photography was a big part of growing up, and I had a dark room. Although I studied architecture, I had a dark room at university, and it just made more sense to develop your own film, and that's when we used film, and it sort of progressed, and it's always been part of the things that we've done. And there's different points in your career where you go off at a tangent before you do your own thing, possibly, and that's what happened to me. And I ended up doing more of the business stuff, and the creative part of it sort of tends to get put to the back burner. It's used every day because you can talk about it and you can understand problems and challenges and look at them from a creative standpoint, but you don't do it as much. And some of the joy, or most of the joy, not all of the joy, in creating is creating, not talking about it. And photography, plays to both of our what's the right word? The things that we love doing. It's those passions. It's a bit technical. It doesn't have to be, though. You don't have to be a technical photographer to take an amazing picture that's going to move somebody. And it lends itself to so many parts of the things that we do, from communicating an idea to creating an emotional response to something. That recently moved into the moving picture as well. Moved into creating some fine art as well. So it's the core of what we do. Really, it may only play a small part in terms of some of the way the clients work, but it's lovely that you can do, if you have a food client who's asked you to do something completely tangential to photography, but when they realize that you can deliver this stuff, you get to do amazing product photography or food photography. That's a bonus. It takes you in a completely different area, and it allows us to do it on our own terms as well, because it's not the core of making money. Again, it's just something that we can add to the mix.
Sure.
Makes a huge difference.
But it's definitely changed from a way in which we communicate things to clients to something that adds a lot more value and something that's taken a life of its own.
Yeah, absolutely. And since being on the island, we've set up a couple of businesses, and photography is the only reason they work. Because when you're isolated from the world physically, but connected digitally, that single frame says so much to people.
Okay. So I think we'll expand on that a little, because I was going to ask, quite often there's a sense that if you're working in a creative industry, the only place that you can be is in the city. You have to be in the city to work. You're drawn to the city, even if you don't want to go there. You have to. If you want to be part of this industry, you've got to be at the heart of it. Having both worked, in that world, but then also come to an island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. That's quite an alien concept, I think, to take a creative business and operate far removed from far distant from the rest of that creative industry, I suppose. I suppose there's a few questions. A, what was the experience like for you guys in doing that, in taking a creative business and planting it on a little island? And then I suppose, how important has social media been to that for you to be able to stay in touch? Has it been vital?
I think there's going to the cities, obviously, where all the big agencies are and all the big creative agencies. Excuse me, I'm going to cough. Sorry. And absolutely get the draw of going to a big city. You've got amazing businesses with amazing minds and creative people, and surround yourself with those people, and you become a better person at what you do. Absolutely. And I think it serves really well when you're starting off on your journey through life. But with the advent, I'm going to sound really old now, the internet. I remember when it started off. I remember before
when it first got switched on.
When it first got switched on and the world became sort of connected, it would have been nigh impossible, I think, unless you had pre-existing relationships. It'd be very hard to work remotely. I think now, actually, you don't need to be at all. And maybe this virus and isolation and lockdown will open people's eyes to the fact that you can work in your own environment and still be connected to all the people you really like, and get to know loads of other people as well. And actually, it stimulates more communication, stimulates the ability to step outside of your comfort zone. We've got sheep.
We can see one in the tiny corner.
Yeah, a little bit distracted because I can see a little lamb in the corner.
It does make me smile.
It seems it would be a much more. So obviously, a lot of people are thinking about the environmental crisis. Well, some of us, and how a lot of our creative practices and touring, and also in photographers being destination based, or following other people around touring and taking snaps,
or working with big crews, lots of production.
Yeah, and like how photography might change in the face of meeting a more sustainable way of being. It sounds like you guys are more rooted in one place and still able to be functional. Like, how do you see the the development of photography may be informed by your practice of managing to function from one place but be worldwide. And
yeah, I think it'd be lovely that it gives more people opportunity. So if you are sort of tied to an area, does that mean you choose the area that you want to be tied to a little more carefully? Do you think about where you live and why you live there? Not so you can commute somewhere or get to an airport. Is it that the world's becoming a photographer? The amount of images that are produced in any 1 second around the world is huge, and a lot of them are truly amazing because of the technology, and lots of people may be more creative than they thought they were. So capturing those moments has become more accessible, I think, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's good that it's become so available and accessible. And does that mean that, if you want a location shoot or you want something shot in a certain place, does it mean that rather than sending a crew of 20 people there and a photographer flying from LA or wherever it is for 2 days and then going again, do you just send the stuff? And then there's a bunch of people who live in that area who who are good at what they do, and they deliver it for you. And then that stuff goes back again. And what you've done is you cut down your carbon footprint, you've given more people an opportunity to do what they do well. And yeah, I know everyone wants to be famous and everyone wants to be the pinnacle of something or be seen as one of the best in the world or something. But if does that necessarily the right way to go about it? Is it a chance for more people to be seen as being great at what they do? So more people being given opportunity, more spread of that wealth. When you're paid 8-10 grand a day, it's quite a lot of money, really. And it's lovely, don't get me wrong. But actually, if 50 people were getting paid that £10,000, but they only had 4 or 5 jobs a year or something like that, is that not better than one person getting all of it going around the world? And does that make them worth any more or less? I think the way you come down to this idea of value. What's the value in that now? And maybe that's just my rose-tinted glasses thinking that, because it's great to see more people, capturing amazing moments, isn't there? It's and what it does is it pushes everything that we all do. You start to ask questions about, that's a really interesting way of looking at the world, and that's a really interesting way of expressing it in that picture.
I don't think it's rose tinted. We need hopeful visions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because if we don't, we've had in the last 10 years financial crises, we've had all these, we've wars going on all over the place, we've got pandemics now. It's just the way the world is. And if everyone thinks it's going to go back to how it was 2 months ago, I have a feeling that's not going to be the case. I have a feeling we're going to have to think more about it for our own safety and our own health. And if you look at how many millions of people died with the Spanish flu, it's a tragic that one person has died from the current virus, but it makes us think about what we do and why we do it. And from people who live on an island that is tiny and has 600 people on it and an internet connection, you can be connected to the world. And it's made us think. We came to the island thinking, what a great place to live. And that's about as far as it went. That's about as deep as it was. Beautiful, let's do it. And the decision was made in about 5 minutes. And, it's not a joke. We got off the ferry and let's move here with no other thought at all. And best thing we've ever done. But since being here, we've looked at the things around us and gone, wow, we could actually do something really great, with wool, for instance. And we can use all the skills that we've acquired over our lifetimes and create something lovely.
Yeah. And were there any challenges of arriving on the island, maybe assuming for a second that the rest of the island didn't share your same broad horizon vision?
I'd say so.
Were there any challenges to planting such a creative business in such a place that probably had quite traditional structures?
Oh yeah, very much so. I with any community, whether that's a small village or a high street, or there is this idea of it's ours, ownership, and anyone being an interloper into that causes all manner of things. Now,
disruption, which is a good thing in some ways.
It is, absolutely, and it's one of those situations where you go, we keep ourselves very much to ourselves because we have all this stuff to do. But it would be remiss of us not to go, gosh, there's all this wool that is essentially everyone loses money on. So I'll give you a prime example. Let's give it some context, really. So it's all over the UK, and Scotland, everywhere. You shear a sheep and you might get charged £1.50 or £2 per sheep to be sheared. You sell that for less than £1, so you're making a loss.
Wow.
So this commodity that's grown and is on the back of every sheep has little or no value. And I just couldn't get my head around the economics of that. How is that even possible? How does that work? Doesn't make sense. How can we not value something? And it's because the world has become commoditized because of globalization that we don't look at the resource we have and go, what can we do with that to bring value back to it? And how can we make more of it? And that's the way we looked at the world. We live on this little island, so let's look at it as our universe. Why would we send things off of our universe that would lose money? Why would you do that? It makes no sense, because you can create beautiful things. So if you go from being segmented and commoditized, so a person farms and they farm a sheep, that sheep is sent off the island for whatever ends. It's had a fleece taken from it, that's sent off the island for whatever ends, and you get given a sum of money, £50, let's say, and you lose money on that whole exploit. You lose money on, and you get a subsidy to make the difference. I'm a really simple person, and that just makes no sense to me at all. I'm no genius, but that is crazy, because you're just perpetuating a loss. So you look at this thing, which is a lovely little animal that lives a long time and has loads of benefits. And the biggest one is that wool. And you can make amazing things from that wool. And there's a preconception, I think, with some people that it's harmful to remove wool from a sheep. It's not. It's a really, we have 7 sheep out there who are super tame. And I sheared one of them the other day, and he just stood there. It's like cutting hair.
So you got to Tyree and told the farmers there that their industry was dysfunctional. How did that go down?
No, that would be a bad thing to do. It was interesting because it came to us because people told us. So a lot of crofters told us that this is all madness.
Oh, they already thought it was madness.
Yeah, they think it's total madness. So I rear a sheep. I have to have it shorn because otherwise it's uncomfortable for the sheep. But we've bred sheep over the last 2,000 years not to shed their wool. So we've created this problem. I lose money on every sheep that gets shorn, and then I sell them to market for a fairly low price, really, for a life. And we perpetuate that.
I mean, the great thing was that one of the crofters said to us, well, if you guys want to do something with it, I'm just going to
give you my wool.
Bury them anyway. So
they invited you, that's nice.
Yeah, so
absolutely.
have my wool. Have at it, see what you can do. And that's what got it started. So it's a known challenge that people couldn't see a doable solution. Now, you're never going to come massively wealthy doing this. If you want to be a millionaire, don't make stuff out of wool on a small scale. But if you want to feel good about yourself and do something that does sustain a little bit of a life and
have integrity.
Totally. And you can be creative in so many ways from this one thing, then amazing. And also you get a bunch of sheep that get to live 12 years, which is roughly their sort of natural life, and they all smile. And they're like, I can call them from the end of the field and they'll come running. And people think we're nuts.
As the problem solvers.
No, I don't know if it
not intentionally, but it sounds like that's how maybe you integrated. Like you listened and then you offered solutions, and maybe that's why you've been accepted, or how you've been deeply accepted. So I know it can take a long time, can't it, in small communities to integrate.
Yeah, and I'm sure plenty of people think we are nuts and we shouldn't do it, and why would we make it such a big change? Don't rock the boat. Absolutely, totally cool. Everyone's got their own opinion, fine. But for us, it just didn't seem right. It seemed a waste of a resource, a really precious resource.
And it's been really wonderful telling this story, and that's been great having social media and the photography and storytelling skills to go with that. The feedback we've had on people who read the stories is absolutely unbelievable. It's really beautiful. We get some lovely, lovely feedback and comments, and I've got people want to fly over from the other side of the world to come and meet our sheep because they love the story that much.
And again, for us, it's been a learning curve from day one, because I can just about look after myself. So taking that leap to look after a living thing, it was quite a big one, especially then you get 7 of them, because you can't say no.
Because that one isn't challenging.
Because you don't do things by heart.
Yes, it's like, they're all friends. Come on then. But but understanding this thing that used to be a fluffy ball in a field that you drove past and ended up on your plate, because that's what happens, has changed my view on so many things, and I'm sure there'll be people who think that it's crazy, but I can't eat meat now because I know them so well. And I don't now see the value in doing that. Doesn't make me happy.
Yeah. The process is also changing you. So you changed the process and then it's changing you.
Yeah, completely changing.
It's all circular.
It is, absolutely. And there's an understanding of something that is just being a commodity again, and it's lovely. Best thing ever. But the byproduct of this solving, I suppose the challenge wasn't really there, but was, it's just one of those elephants in the room, of which there are many. It has been that we get to use all of the skills that we've picked up in life and do something great with it, we hope.
Yeah. And I kind of said it, when we came over in the summer, and I was expecting just to meet two simple photographers, which turned out to be quite far from the truth. Do you resist putting yourself into some sort of category? When you're sat around a dinner table with a group of strangers and they say, "Hey, so Jason, Yvonne, what do you do?"
We say not much, really.
Nothing and everything.
Yeah. I think how people have selective hearing. I think they hear the different things that we do. So some people will pick up on the photography. Yeah. Someone will pick up on the art, maybe because they've bought a bit. Some people will pick up on the brand work or the innovation, problem solving. Depends on
inspiring crafting.
Yeah, exactly.
You just choose which costume to wear. Like Yvonne started at this dinner party. Should we say aspiring crofters? Okay, cool. Let's go that.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think that's where I agree with your comment earlier on, that in the current world in which we live, the idea of being very niche, very focused, absolutely does cut through completely. I think it's quite mechanical. So it's if you're a photographer, you're a portrait photographer who does black and white, and that's not who you are really. It may be the thing that you're known for. We know someone who is a wedding photographer and is internationally well known for doing that, but their passion lies in a completely different area. The thing that makes them smile every day is so different, and they're building a business around that. But because they do take a cracking photo in that situation, that's what's made them fairly famous.
I went to a series recently that was inviting us into a consideration that we have an economy that is built on people being overloaded and materialism and greed, and actually an economy that had more integrity would have people finding what their passion was, what their skills were, what their true skills were, like their unique skill set, and
probably greater prosperity as well.
Powering the economy from that position. It's really a beautiful proposition, and it sounds like you guys are kind of on the way there, and also enabling others to do that.
Yeah, I agree completely. And we live in this construct that has us working as close to 24/7 as you can do for a return. On the whole, I get the feeling that a lot of people do things they don't want to be doing. That to me seems wrong. Yes, it's the way things are at the moment, but is that right? We made the construct in the first place. We can change it. It's hard. Change is, everyone hates change. Don't care who you are. There are things that, change. And so if you're going to try and change the way people live, you need a big catastrophe maybe to make you look at that change. Yeah. Funny that, eh?
I know, right?
Now, and luckily, I suppose that they become less destructive is the word I would use. You move from not being able to solve a problem around a pandemic, it's been in the past, to wars. It's really sad and a terrible thing that people all around the world are dying, and it's just not great at all. But I can't help being an optimist, and I'm sure I get shot down for it, but looking for the good out of it, looking for the thing that you can take from it and go, okay, what can I learn? How can I be better? What can I do better? And what does that look like? What does success look like moving forward? Taking all the loss of pain.
What does this uncover that wasn't functioning well, and how can I stay with that?
Yeah. And even the flip side, what things am I not missing? So am I missing traveling around the world and doing all these things and buying all this stuff that I actually didn't really need? So if that opens people's eyes, then that's a great thing.
Yeah, and you might see the flip side to it. So maybe there is or there are a large proportion of people who have spent their lives traveling the world either on business or for pleasure, and you think, do you know what? I've missed the things around me. I need to live outside the little box I'm stuck in at the moment, but maybe be a bit more proximity of the things that are close to my house and where I live. And there will be people probably who say, my God, I've spent my whole life here. I've not seen the world. I need to go and see it.
Yeah.
I need to understand that. So I think it's looking for...
Do you guys feel do you have a sense of agency in changing that culture? Do you feel like you have a role, can play a role, will play a role, like can?
Well, I was going to say, when you first spoke to a client and put forward your financial proposition, was it something where when it got to the end of the project, they were like, wow, this is so much better? Is it something that you feel like has kind of had an effect maybe to the next people that they're speaking to about a project? And they've said, oh, actually, we've met, we've come across a new model. It's a better way of working.
Yeah. I don't think we'll ever, we don't have any sort of power to change anything particularly. We're just two people on an island. But I think if more people think a little harder about how things work, and that they can make a little change. I think it's tiny steps. Everyone wants to make big changes to the world, and the world's a really hard place to change. Even at its worst, why on earth do we kill each other? I mean, we've been doing it for thousands of years, and we still haven't stopped doing it. That'd be a big change. And for us, it's about what can we do that makes us feel like we are having a positive impact on ourselves and maybe a few people around us.
Well, I hope it grows. It sounds like it is already.
Well, it'd be lovely if we removed the conversations about money in the way that we do. I think if we change value, we talk about cryptocurrencies and all these different ways of monetizing or putting an exchangeable value on things. But I think if we can move that to the end of conversations, it will absolutely focus how we all see ourselves and the things that we do. And
I think living on a small island, you do realise that some of those values still exist. Yep. So I have relationships here with people where they say, I'd love one of your hats. And I'm like, well, you make soap. You know what? Let's do a trade. And that still exists. And that's really, really lovely.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a tangible, it's in your reach.
Well, it's almost small town economics. I remember, fueling up your car by the guy who, he's in charge of the petrol supply.
Yeah.
You write in a little book and you settle up at the end of the month. It's small town principles in a big world.
Yeah, I mean the construct that we live in, in large conurbations is based on no trust.
Mm. Yeah,
it's based on having to lock your doors. This is an island where no one locks their doors. I mean, you don't lock. I can't even remember where my keys are. And because what's anyone going to steal? Where are they going to go? Who's going to nick your car? It's just not going to happen. So the idea again of proximity, the people around you, the more you know them, maybe the less inclined you are to be mean to them. It's anyway very rudimentary way of putting it. But yeah, we live in these large cities where everyone's in a rush, everyone wants more. We live in a society that's massively imbalanced. How can that even be possible? We've been doing this for 2,000 years now. We still haven't got it right. That's not going to change overnight. Even we had financial crises, and we still don't really change. We just find another way of circumventing that. So although I'm this massive optimist, I know that changing the system takes lots and lots of little changes, on a daily basis. And I'm not talking about putting stuff into recycling, because you have no idea where it's going to go once you've done that. It's about things that you can directly influence to the end point. Mm-hmm. Being in control, taking back control of the whole process, not divesting your success or your idea of happiness to somebody else. If you look back to how businesses used to be, and before the Industrial Revolution, you controlled what you made, how you made it, where you sold it, how much you got for it. Mm. And yes, lots of people did that. So there weren't loads of really, really wealthy people, but there were a lot of people who had it turns out from a bit of reading, a fairly good life. Then you put everyone into large workhouses and turning out the same widget. You lose skills, you lose the ability to make your own destiny, all of those things.
Alcoholism is broken in many parts of society, and our bodies, and the medical model. And
it's all. And I think there's becoming a greater awareness thanks to being connected and having conversations on the large platform, and people being able to make a decision whether they're going to make a small change. The idea of being plant-based doesn't mean you don't necessarily not eat meat, but it means you understand where it comes from, and you eat less of it because you understand the value in it and all that sort of stuff, and how we understand the resource, because we've lost track of where stuff comes from, and when you lose track of those things, it's very easy to misunderstand the world. If kids don't understand what a burger is, that it comes from a cow and that cow is in the field next door or wherever, that's a bad thing. If you don't understand what money really is or where it comes from, if you're not taught about it and how it works, you lose track of those things, and you just accept it. And I think that's the thing, is that idea of acceptance, and maybe that comes from my technical nerdy bit, where it comes to wanting to understand how you take the photo. If you look at the technicality in those things, how all those interplays are between light and time and movement and all that sort of stuff, and you just scale that up to the world. It's answering loads and loads of questions.
Just thinking what you said about having a greater understanding of where things come from and how they're produced. I overhear a lot of photographers talking about how clients these days don't understand the value of photography and what's being produced. And actually, what you're describing could absolutely be applied to that example as well. It's like, then what's required for a greater understanding?
Yeah, exactly. And this is the idea that we have just come to accept how things are. You ask someone to go and do a shoot, they come back with a great bit of work. But it's one of those situations where value's lost because everyone's fighting for that big payoff, to have that big name, to be the person who lands the big client, who then gets steady work and all that sort of stuff. I think by creating an economy of smaller things, a connected economy of smaller producer, maker, creator controlled stuff.
Specialists.
Yes, absolutely, specialists. Yeah. And I think that's
in our own specialism.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. This idea of being focused actually is more about being a specialist in the thing that you do and owning the process.
Well, it's like you said about all these skilled craftsmen and producers there were back in the day, who then just got brought into a mill to all produce the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It comes from the delusion of separation, right? That we should be one individual who is purely operational in our own individual ecosystem, which means that we should be able to be accountants, dancers, therapists, fundraisers, marketers, all in one package, which is absurd, right? It's absurd.
Yeah. I think there's a need to just do things at a smaller scale. And the world's geared up to make things bigger. If you look at a company, its sole purpose in life is to grow.
Well, that's human sole purpose in life, right? To grow.
But to do that, you have to use resource. But then to grow as a business, it's about using resource that costs you the least. That's basically the conversation you're having. It's not about necessarily producing the best or doing the best you can. It's about producing it for the least and selling it for the most.
So the word sustainable growth, I think that's been lost really.
Yeah.
And some of us are trying to get back to that again.
Yeah, definitely.
I love your analogy of using the process of making a photograph as an analogy of holism. Say that again.
Yeah, so it is. It's where if you look at how when you understand light and movement and time, which is what you're dealing with, that's the same as anything in life, and it comes from that that nerdy part of who I am, and you're constantly striving to get the best balance, but in lots of different situations. So if you only took photos at 1:00 in the afternoon when the sun is at a certain place at a certain level, that's being focused. But actually understanding the interplay of those things, that's the important part of it.
And I suppose life has that interplay between time and money, family, work.
I wonder how many people have realised that they've missed their time with their families. And okay, there's a stress in the world at the moment, but have the stresses of home life actually removed themselves because you are able to be together?
Yeah, I think children will be very nourished by lockdown.
Yeah. Another side to that, which is where, if you look at how societies work, there are a proportion of people who being at home is not good for them because their environment is not conducive to living a healthy, sustainable life, especially for children. But that should make us ask, well, what are we doing wrong?
Yeah.
In this time of crisis where you have to stay in your home, how on earth can a group of people not be safe and well in that? What are we doing as society to not understand that and not put in place the measures needed to enable them to live an enriched life?
But that's not a problem we're going to own.
No, absolutely not.
No, you can't, right? But we have to acknowledge, don't we?
Yeah,
we have to know that's
I think you have that holistic view of the world, the good and the bad. You have to understand the good and the bad, and take from that what you will, and then carve your path, balancing those. But if you don't recognise them, you can't ignore them. You have to accept that they're there, and on the whole, accept you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, what you can and what you can't do something about.
Yeah. And I think some people fall into a trap of trying to change the world to their own detriment as well, unfortunately. So I'm sure lots of people disagree, but I think it's about carving that path where you do the best you can.
Well, it's like, as you said before as well, like being able to see something through from beginning to end.
Yeah.
Like, can you solve this problem with your own hands?
Exactly. Can you get there?
Yeah.
And I think that's the key to everything. We love taking that from that seed of an idea to that finished thing. Mm-hmm. There's something lovely about understanding and getting it wrong a lot as well. How often do we get it wrong?
Yeah, learning shitloads along the way as well, though.
Oh, totally.
If you're drawing from all these pools of incredible knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, you're constantly learning when you surround yourself with really clever people. And that's why you do it. Oh my God, it's great. You realise how thick you are. It's awesome.
No, they shine back your beauty and your intelligence to you.
Honestly, there is something enlightening about being surrounded by really great people who do stuff that blows your mind. It makes you want to be a better person. Yeah. And for me, I think that's the thing that I've enjoyed the most. To look at it from a photography point of view. When the workload that we had for some of the shoots that we did was just massive, and you go out and you find guys and girls and men and women and who just take the most amazing shot. You think, how the hell did you see that? And it makes you look at the world a bit differently. And there's nothing better. There's nothing more amazing. I used to love it when because some of the shoots that we were doing were so big and there's just so much stuff to do. You would have 4 or 5 different photographers doing stuff for you. There's nothing more exciting than you doing a piece and shooting and going, oh, that looks okay. And when those files start to hit from other people, you go, wow, that's really good. And
making in a community is actually much more functional and
diverse, and the result is effective.
And what happens? You get a richness to something. So rather than shooting everything yourself, there's something absolutely lovely about, because when you take that shot, I think I can probably remember most of the things I've ever shot. You see, oh yeah, I remember doing that. It might be you might take 2,000 shots in a day because you're doing something, and when you see them, it's you. It's like your signature, isn't it? You just can't help it. You go, oh yeah. And Yvonne and I both take all the shots, and we never tell anyone who's taken. So all the stuff that we do, even our clients have no idea who shot what or who's done what. But then when you flip a page in a book that you've done for somebody, and it's not your shot, and you think there's just that moment of surprise again because you look at it again. So if I'm getting that from looking at something that we've created, that the random person who's picked up that book or that thing is going to get that for every page. That depth and richness and the continuity and change, I think it is. Yeah, it's
Like
lovely.
the depth and power and support of a marriage meeting a creative project.
That's one way of putting it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. You look back on, you have to excuse my mumbling and grumbling, but you look back on things and you think, yeah, that's really amazing. You know, and one of the things that I think also definitely confounds people is, you know, we spend every minute of every day together, you know, working and living, and it works really well for us. And it's, you know, absolutely on the photography side of stuff. It removes a huge amount of stress.
Well, you'll see the thing I don't see, and vice versa, because we do both look at the world very differently. I mean, A, because we're different heights, you get different perspectives.
Yeah.
And that is actually, you know, you laugh, but it's really true. You know, that if you're different height, children see the world completely differently to how we see the world. But then, you know, you see a moment that the other person doesn't see, and so when you come back from a photo shoot, you get a much more holistic view of you know, the scenario or the situation you're trying to capture.
Yeah. Well, and coming from a place, I imagine, of deep trust, a relationship where there's deep embedded trust is a very powerful relationship to create in, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Definitely.
And the funny thing is, you know, we all make errors quite regularly. You know, classic stuff. You know, you forget to put a card in, which you'd think you wouldn't do after years and years of doing it.
Yeah.
Just because you got so excited about something. And the great thing is you can laugh about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to.
There's failings as well. Yeah, that's important. Well, essential. It takes the fear right from a working environment.
Especially when you're married to me. I mean, it's every day's a challenge. So yeah, it's good. So I'd recommend anyone moving to an island.
What I was going to chime in with there was, you know, I think one thing I would take from this is the advantages that come from not restricting yourself and thinking of yourself as and repeating yourself and just kind of being quite blinkered in how you go forward, you know, whether it's creatively or in life, but in this example creatively, you know, kind of really do continue to push yourself outside of that pattern that you gravitate towards.
Yeah, I think it's all driven by, do we do something that creates an emotional reaction, hopefully a smile or a sense of joy, you know, whether that's for a fleeting second or for a longer period of time. So all of the things that we do have, I hope, that sort of impact. And I think there's nothing better than seeing that and having that. And completely agree that I think if we stop putting ourselves into boxes, we might find that there's a lot more opportunity out there. I completely understand that everyone has to pay the bills and all that sort of stuff, but you can actually get away with less and do more. It opens up a lot of opportunities. Yeah.
Well, to round this up with the question that was going to be right at the beginning, how do you guys describe Dutch-Engels?
Different. It's for us. It's about asking lots of questions, not having the answers.
And if we pressed you to say Dutch-Engels is?
Dutch-Engels is different. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's different. And
we don't have boundaries.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing. We go beyond the boundaries. You know, you're limited by your own imagination or your lack thereof.
Yeah.
That's a nice strapline. Dutch-Engels, limited by your own imagination.
Yeah. No, seriously awesome to chat to you guys.
I look forward to you guys getting up here at some point again.
Oh, we have to, yeah.
For sure.
Take care of yourselves and see you soon.
You too.